The miracle question is this. Suppose that whatever it is you want happens at night while you're asleep, not a dream, it just happens, and you wake up and you're unaware that it happened. What would things look like that would give you the clue that, hey, this has happened?
I think as a small business owner, most of the accomplishments that you have are not like, I want to run a 6-minute mile or I want to bench 300 pounds. They're more so, holy crap, we're not getting paid. We got to build an invoice system. And so then we build it. Now we're getting paid. And it's just because it's a fire that causes the accomplishment a lot of times. It's not necessarily that there was a goal that we achieved. And when you're in the thick of it, it's just, okay, we put out the fire. What's the next fire?
What really matters to people more than anything else is that they make progress toward a meaningful goal.
Look at your accomplishments, find a way to track them and to remind yourself of them.
That's massively important, massively, because you just take everything for granted. It is so important to do that.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor.
And I know this is going to air like well after this week, but I'm really tired of the cold weather.
I think it was 6 this morning. Yeah, I was talking to one of our listeners down in Florida yesterday, and it was 82. Just, holy cow. And my son Nick lives in Boise, Idaho, and it's 46 today. So, it's a big
every
dip.
time we get to this time of year where it's like on the cusp of spring and you still have this cold weather, I find myself going onto Zillow and looking at Florida and Puerto Rico. My mind really stretches.
Well,
I'm not going to do anything, but I just, it helps to think that there's an escape.
I mentioned that yesterday to Dave, the Florida guy, who will certainly hear this. And he said, yeah, till you get out working and it starts to get humid, it's 90, 80, 90 degrees. Pretty soon you're thinking,
Yeah,
boy, a little 6 degree wouldn't be too bad. We work on
the grass
averages.
isn't greener. It's just, anyways. Well, this will be a fun time. We have zero prep for this episode, but I think we got some things to talk about. I don't know if you,
Well, we'll just
go
why that
back
is.
and forth.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is, hopefully we're not totally slackers, but we had a guest for today come down with the flu, and that's pretty tough. Matter of fact, it's
been a crazy
fortunate.
flu season for everybody. I feel like it's just, especially here in Oklahoma, I think we were rated the top amount of flu cases per capita in the U.S.
Yeah, and Cleveland County, where we live, was number one in Oklahoma. So
shutting down schools.
Copy to Tootie copy. Yeah. No, I was thinking about it. I've been really lucky. I haven't had, gosh, I hate to knock on wood, all that.
Yeah.
But I haven't had anything, cold or anything. I'm just going, God, it's great. Because I forget how much being sick sucks. But
it's awful.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we were talking, kind of abruptly found out we weren't prepared. I started thinking about things that matter to my clients that I don't think we've ever talked about, and that really do make a difference. But they're not bookkeeping, they're not marketing, they're more psychological. And what I'm talking about is that we keep a record of accomplishments.
Okay.
Okay.
What does that look? How do you envision that looking like?
Well, a great way to do it, and that guy, I think, journal, would be for people to journal so that they can keep a record. It's like going to the gym. You start out at the gym and you go in there and a year later, you have all these goals or whatever you're doing. And if you don't take pictures or write down what you're doing, it's a year later and somebody says, well, how you doing? You go, I don't know, Well, You're not the same person at all if you've been going regularly for a year, but you don't notice the change. And so you don't give yourself credit. And I find that with business owners, I would love to see people keep a perpetual record. In my style, that's a notebook, right, with paper in it.
Yeah.
Certainly not for other people, but on a maybe daily basis, a reflective time, or ad hoc basis, being aware. And when you're starting in business, a significant accomplishment would be, hey, I have a website,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's a big damn deal. When you don't have a website and you've got that in front of you, and when you do have a website and it's behind you, that's a
Mhm.
big difference, right? You've checked, that's an accomplishment. Your phone number, you've decided what your corporate structure is going to be. You have an accountant. Those are all accomplishments. They're not running the 100-yard dash and 9 flat, but they're all things that you have to do and you have to get done. And then as you go through, you can name a bunch of goals too, but things like I've built a system for invoicing.
Mhm.
You have it written down. That's an accomplishment. At the
That-
end of
I
the
think I think why this doesn't come across as accomplishments a lot of time is because I think as a small business owner, most of the accomplishments that you have are not like, I want to run a 6-minute mile or I want to bench 300 pounds.
Yep.
They're more so, holy crap, we're not getting paid. We got to build an invoice system. And so then we build it. Now we're getting paid. And it's just because it's a fire that causes the accomplishment a lot of times. It's not necessarily that there was a goal that we achieved. And when you're in the thick of it, it's just, okay, we put out the fire. What's the next fire? And that's
It-
why it kind of goes past us as not an accomplishment, but just like, okay, we solved the problem, you know?
Right. Well, that's the point, and I hope maybe today would encourage people to see those as accomplishments. We have people who talk about, I mean, it's come up many times over the years, say, would you ever thinking about exiting your business, want to sell it? And the thing I've heard many, many, many times is who would want to buy it, right? And we're not,
Right.
and I know I am aware in 2 cases that come immediately to mind. People sold their business just to get out of a lease. They got like a 5-year lease that they're obliged to pay, and they'll give you the business if you just take over the lease, right? So those, and when people ask me who would want to buy it, I say, well, I may not know specifically, but think back to everything you had to do to get a business that has a name and a phone number and a website and an email and a product, and whether you've written them down or not, a system for delivering that product and suppliers and customers. And you just discount all that because it just happened, as you said, well, I have to do that. And I have to do it today.
Yeah.
But I want
Yeah.
people to give themselves credit for that.
It requires reflection. I do journal a lot, and I'll maybe describe my journaling method because I think a lot of times people envision that being like a perfect setting where you have the journal that you pick up and a pen and you've got to sit down and write for 30 minutes or an hour. And I used to idolize journaling like that, where it had to be this perfect scenario. But for me, I use a tool called Notion. You could use your Apple Notes app if you wanted to. It's just a simple, notepad for the easier terms. But yeah, I just use bullet points. I
Yeah.
just start. That's all I do. So I just jump in, and what I do is I start writing, and I just give context, and I'm literally just putting, all right, sitting down at my desk or sitting down at this coffee shop, ordered a cappuccino. Guy just walked in with a crazy hat. I've just slept terribly last night. I'm just putting context, random stuff, just to start thinking and writing, right? I don't know what that method is in school, but they tell you, okay, you can't put your pen down. It doesn't matter what you write. It can be whatever you want, but you just have to start writing. So I do that for maybe like a minute or two. And then I start listing out bullet points of thoughts or feelings. So it can be things like, I really want to get back to working out, or, need to make sure that I'm getting coffee with more people for business development, or whatever it is, just all these different thoughts. And I just put bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And then after like 3 or 4 minutes, I've got a list of all these thoughts and ideas that are in my head, and they're just there. And if
Yeah.
I've got more time, okay, I'm going to choose that bullet point and I'm going to flesh it out. I want to get back to working out might be one of them. Yeah, last time I worked out was 2 weeks ago. It's getting cold, so I can't go on runs as easily. And so I'm not really doing it. Need to go into the gym, or, I still have that membership to the YMCA. I should go swimming. Maybe I can make a schedule for Monday, Wednesday, Friday and go working out. Well, that's just getting those thoughts out of your head, which is really important because this goes back to getting things done, which I do want to talk to you about. But your brain is good for having ideas and terrible for storing them. And when you try to store all of these ideas, you do a bad job of it, and it causes you to stress out a little bit because you're trying to keep track of all of it in your mind. But if you're getting it out on paper, it's so valuable because you don't have to, you know that, oh, I have that journaling system. Let me go back and look at that. Same things for these accomplishments. Storing those is not going to happen that well. You're going to have to like put it down somewhere where you're going to track it.
My only, I don't object. What you're saying is what we should do. I mean,
It's hard.
Should. Yeah. Just a lot of people have difficulty with that. I am one of them. And
Yeah.
that's why I can empathize with it. But look, you can write those things down. You can also use Applaud. We ought to talk about that real quickly. Little cheap device goes on your phone, records everything, transcribes it, summarizes it. Doesn't cost
Yeah.
anything
How
to
cheap
do
is that?
$140 or something.
Okay.
I paid for it.
Not like
It-
when you say cheap, I was thinking like $10 or $20.
Oh, no. The device it's put out by ChatGPT is who owns it, whatever. But you can record notes to yourself, record phone calls, record meetings. Of course, when I do that with clients that I meet in person, I always tell them we're recording it, except for one guy. He doesn't know.
Tell them. Everyone knows.
He'll find out. Though.
Everything.
No, you tell me that you're recording them. And the thing about it transcribes every word, and then it summarizes it. Chat summarizes it for you.
Well,
And
this
so
is a great point. You don't have to journal literally writing. I do think that there is a value
Yes.
in doing that. But I oftentimes just pull out voice memos. Like, especially when there's big events, just pull up a voice memo and start talking. Go on a walk and start talking. Just get all those, same thing that you would do as if you're typing, but just put all the thoughts out, right? And
Yeah.
I like to do that with major events. You know, I've had several major events in my life this past calendar year, and it's so great to go back and listen to those things because there's so much context that you forget about, and you get to understand your feelings and what the real moment was like. So yeah, I think journaling can be a 5-minute activity is I think an important thing to understand, but it also doesn't have to be something that's very formal. It can be a casual voice recording to capture that. Now, my only qualm with all of this is that while it's great to journal, if you're talking about remembering accomplishments and tracking them, you're going to have to revisit your journal or your voice memos to be able to do that. And that's also a difficult piece of this.
I have, it is, but I have a section in my notes for every coaching session I do. It's the last thing. It's called accomplishments. And I use the word in our coaching sessions, like on Google Meet or recording on Applaud. I'll say, oh, that's quite an accomplishment. Well, I'm complimenting them for that, but I'm also marking that. I want chat to go find that and put it in accomplishments. And then I was thinking, man, I want to carry forward all the accomplishments from prior meetings that we identified. And then I thought, which is hard to do. I don't know how to do that. But I thought, I don't have to do that. I can look at the last section of every printed off notes that I have and add them all up. And I have, I printed off this morning. I didn't count them. I should have. I think it's 28, right after the first of the year with a long-term client. I said, let's review the accomplishments from last year. And I think I have 28 here. I didn't count them all. But implemented a new CRM. They got a new accountant who's keeping amazing books. They have what they're proud to call a tech stack. I didn't even dive into it, but they have one and it works. They bought a machine to help manufacture. After years of thinking about buying some land and putting a facility on it to manufacture instead of buy, they actually bought the land. They got power installed in a driveway in and insulated the building. You know, they have some new suppliers, all of these things that they have done that when we're sitting there talking about them, they're going, oh yeah. They take it for granted that they now have a building and 14-acre facility with 3-phase power and insulated and air conditioning with a machine that makes what they sell in it. Now, I'm not saying they discounted that, but when we talked about that, they go, oh yeah, that was an accomplishment. It immediately just becomes part of who they are. and these are great people. They don't throw it over their shoulder and disregard it, but they're not thinking, wow, until we go
Yeah.
through it. And then they do think, wow, and it counteracts all the pressure and the stress and the negative that go with being a business owner. Not all the time, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my main.
A couple of thoughts with that. One, this reminds me of our conversation with Ken Rusk, who we had on. Great episode. We'll link to in the show notes. But just they write down their goals on a whiteboard that everybody can see, personal and professional, and they talk about them a lot. And I think that helps with it, being able to track these accomplishments. But also, what you just did for a client is what a lot of clients should probably be doing for their employees. I'm sure it will help retention. I'm sure it will help culture. I'm sure it will help everything of just your employees are succeeding a lot, and they're probably feeling the weight of just the current, projects that they're in, the tasks that they've got to take care of, and then their just life in general outside of work, just like you are. With that, it's always amazing how, because life is so fast now and we're just so more efficient than we're, even just 2 years ago with the advent of AI and how much that's changing work for us. I think that it's really easy to forget who we wanted to be just previously. I had a conversation with my sister last night, actually, where, work's challenging right now, and just thinking about some of these challenges and kind of venting to me. We talk about work in that capacity. But, just 2017, she was a college recruiter making roughly $40,000 a year, decided to get her master's in human relations. And now, 7 years later, she's making well into six figures, and the director of HR helped take a company from, 20 employees to now they're at almost 150, and they're about to double to 300 because now they're private equity backed and they're going to acquire a new company. And so, if you would have told her in 2017, hey, in about 7 years, this is how much money you're going to be making, and here's what you're going to have accomplished, and the track that you're going to be on, she would have been like, no way, that's not possible, And I mean, she's literally more than 4x'd her salary. And so it's really cool to see, but it's also easy to forget how far you've come. And so this is a really valuable exercise to go through and something to
Just an aside, but you can get used to 4x your salary and not think it's much. I mean, we've asked a lot of people, you and I both, I'm thinking of one guy we were talking about yesterday who sold his business. They say, what would you have thought in your first year would be just unbelievable sales? 150 grand. What are we shooting for now? 10 million, right? And not thinking, if it's 8 million, it's a bummer. It just perspective changes, and it's just valuable personally. I'm reading a book, and I've been struggling to remember the name. I was reading the Wall Street Journal, and they do book reviews in there, and this guy was in it, and gosh, I can't. It's about how to change what doesn't work, but that's not the main title. And it's basically, when you read it, it's basically kind of a reworking of lean, but it's pretty good. And one of the things that he talks about in there is, what's the goal of the goal? Okay. So review your goals. Like, my goal is to do 10 million. I mean, that's a terrible goal by itself.
But why?
But what's the goal of the goal? And he also talks about asking, and I don't think he came up with this, he gives credit to somebody else, the miracle question. And the miracle question is this: suppose that whatever it is you want happens, whatever that you want to happens at night while you're asleep, not a dream, it just happens, and you wake up and you're unaware that it happened. What would things look like that would give you the clue that, hey, this has happened? I think that's a great question, because it starts to articulate what you have to do to make it happen, rather than just this big Does that make sense? I can't
Yeah,
remember
you're
what
thinking
it was.
about the impacts and the symptoms, side effects of hitting that goal rather than hitting
Yeah, I
that
mean,
goal.
kind
And
of an
brings a lot of clarity to those.
exaggerated. You want a culture where everybody gets along, and you go to work, and the way you know it is nobody's yelling at each other. What happened? Nobody's
Yeah.
mad. So and so showed up on time. So and so left and found a different job because knew that he or she didn't fit. So anyway, I thought that was a great.
That's really powerful. Yeah, like you want to be a $10 million company. That's your goal. You wake up the next morning and you are, oh, I've got middle management like completely in place.
Right.
Oh,
What?
there's,
Wow.
we've got great cash in the bank. Oh, like we don't have credit card debt. Oh, like all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Which, it doesn't necessarily mean if you're a $10 million company, you have all those things. But if you've gotten to 10 million, you've likely been working on those things.
Right. But I just thought that was a great approach to it. Is it happens overnight? You go into work and you didn't know it happened. How could you tell that it did? And I thought that
That's
was
good.
great because that's what you need to look for.
And you don't know the name of this book?
Well, hang on a minute. I ordered it on. I'm reading it at home. So
Well, while you're thinking of that,
you talk while I'm looking at my orders.
I made an Amazon purchase this weekend, and I can't remember who I saw talk about this on, I don't know, YouTube or something like that. But the Pomodoro method
Reset. RESET. Reset is the name of
is
the
the book by who?
Yeah. Dan Heath.
Dan Heath. Okay, Reset.
Yeah.
We'll put that in
Reset.
the show
How to
notes for our
change
listeners.
what's not working. And anyway, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not completely finished with it yet, but I'd put it on my recommended list. It's an easy read. He writes just easily. It's not too heavy on the theory.
Quick ad break, or really a segment, to share with you a conversation that we recently had with Sergio Garcia of Alpha Surfaces in Oklahoma City. Really, it's a great conversation that captures the essence of what we're all about here at Growth Kits and at the Cashflow Contractor, which is helping contractors be more productive so they can have less stress, more time, and more money in their business. Rather than hear from me, let's just listen in and hear Sergio talk.
How do you come up with that idea? Like, that's crazy, man.
As a business owner, you try to find ways to give value, right? So just understanding the pain and trying to find ways of solving that pain. And then some of it was just scratching my own itch. I mean, I had these problems too. So that's how I got Gabby. And then I had 2 executive assistants before Gabby, and it just didn't work out. And I realized that I was the problem and that I needed to have a better onboarding and training system in place. And then I realized, well, that's what everybody else has the problem with. They try things with people in person or overseas, but they don't actually have a really good onboarding or training process. And so it doesn't work out. And so it's about having a dedicated process to help someone succeed and manage them and, all that different kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad it's been valuable for you, man.
This is crazy. I mean, I told everybody, like, I know a towel setter. He's an American guy, and he partners with a Mexican guy. They've been running, 5 crews right now. Now they're doing, big constructions. And I see that pain every time I talk to these small contractors. I see me in them. Man, I can't do this anymore. My mind's just going crazy. And, overweight because we eat whatever we can because we don't have time to work out. We don't have time to, man, it can't be that way. So when I started working with you and Martin, and it just opened a new world. Now that you're showing me all these tools for my business, and Vicky showing me all these new, open phone and, the CRM, that was one of the problems, man. I mean, the CRM was great. It's a great tool. I just didn't know, it was like you're also overwhelmed that you think, oh, this shit doesn't work. You're the one that doesn't work because you're too crazy busy doing a bunch of little things.
Yeah.
And man, I think you got a great, and it's so noble too, man, to be honest with you, because you're helping a sector of nobody cares. How to say this? You're helping a sector where, if you're a company that sells 100 million, everybody wants to work with you. Everyone wants to find value to you, right? But nobody cares about the guy that sells 10 million or 5 million, right? Nobody cares about them. And they're struggling. They're losing their family. They're losing their mental health, they're losing physical health, and they're losing their passion for business. Natalie told me the other day, she was like, Sergio, you're back. And I was like, what do I mean you're back? She's like, you're back. Your fire is back. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you look happier, you look engaged. And I didn't notice that until she mentioned it. I was like, that's before you guys, like before and after.
Yeah.
So I feel that's super cool that you're looking into this, into us, like the small contractors, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that means a lot to me, man. I really appreciate you saying that.
We loved working with Sergio. We'd love to work with more contractors like him who know that they're capable of so much more, but they're overwhelmed by the day-to-day, by the admin, by just not having the support they need. And I think an owner's assistant can truly transform the way that you operate your construction business. If you're interested, link down below, and we'd love to hear from you. Schedule a roadblock call, and we will outline 5 clear ways that an assistant can completely change the way that you work in and on your business. Back to the episode. Well, you know the Pomodoro method?
I do not.
You do. You just don't know the name of it. It's the like, okay, I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes, and I'm just going to, buckle down, focus for 20 minutes. When the timer goes off, I'm going to do something else. Use it when studying in college.
It cracks me up because I had not heard that name. And yesterday I had an alignment with a brand new client. And this client mentioned the Pomodoro method. It has a little timer on her desk. Anyway, I had never heard that name.
That's what I got.
Yeah. Well, she held up and showing it to me. It's kind of like a sprint for yourself.
Yeah. No, it's great. You can, it's a sprint. You push it and then you get your little beat.
Yeah.
You can pause it. But I guess you could use this for your journaling. Hey, I'm going to just write for 5 minutes, and you set the timer for 5 minutes and you just do it. But what I'm using it for is not only doing like, okay, I'm going to 10 minutes on email. That's it. Like, I don't want to sit in my email inbox forever. Or 20 minutes to write this content or whatever it is. I'm also using it. There's times where I think things are going to take a certain amount of time. And for example, I was trying to build an AI automation. I thought I could do it in like 45 minutes to an hour. So I set the timer for 45 minutes and I wasn't even close to getting done by the time the timer went off. Not that it's that difficult to do. It's just that I'm not good at estimating, I guess, how long something's going to take. And so just trying to learn a little bit more about what actually eats at my time so that I can figure out what to delegate rather than do myself. If this certain task is going to take me that amount of time, I need to let it be off my plate. Or if it's that important, then I need to a lot more time for it. So that's something I've been doing recently. If listeners are not watching the video, I'm holding up the timer and you can kind of see it here, but it's a little circle hockey puck size where you just spin the outside and sits the timer. So it's also magnetic, so I can sit it on this metal desk.
Since we're kind of rambling over different subjects, but this is one related. And you know what a chess timer is, right? A clock.
Yeah, where it goes back and forth. And
you push down and push down. You put a red on one and a green on one and just test it for the day. And if you're working on your business, hit the green down.
Ooh.
Okay? Somebody walks into your office and starts talking to you about something, hit the red down. And just do that for a few days. And
where'd you get this?
From an old franchise. There was a guy. It's been out there. I just hadn't actually thought about it for a while. That's a
really good one.
But it will show you. I mean, one great division, and it may have come from Michael Gerber. I don't know, but I didn't think of it. But it can be a split between on the business and in the business, right? So if you're working on the strategy things that you're talking about, you're in the green. If you're filling out an invoice or calling a customer, that's red. Or it can be, doing your work or answering questions. I had one client, only had him for a month, but it was a great thing. He said, the thing that drives me crazy is everybody comes in and asks me damn questions all the time. I mean, all the time. Well, would just quickly say the reason they do that is because you allow them to do that. And maybe you don't have systems for them. But anyway, you can stop that. But what we did was I bought him a clicker, a counter, look like a whistle, and just click it and goes up one. Had him put it in his pocket. And I said, every time somebody asks you a question, click that thing. And it's been 7 or 8 years, but I think he had like 300, 200 a day, right?
A day?
A day. Yeah. People stick their head.
God.
Are you doing this? Yeah. No, I got it. Hey, have you seen Ronnie's got it. You get one. Our listeners, get one.
Yeah. I don't know that I definitely would not have in the hundreds.
Well,
I mean, maybe in the dozens, but
we're not sitting with a bunch of employees that are, anyway, that was an extreme case, but he often, and it's been 7 or 8 years, might've been 150, but it was ridiculous. And in a course of a month, we managed to cut it in about half. And then I didn't coach him for other reasons beyond that. But
gotcha.
So I don't know. He might be back. He might be down to 2. But it's a great way to get a baseline, and you can go, oh, that's why.
Well, I think there's a few things for that. One is you become the hub and spoke of the business where everything runs through you. And you have to have more middle management in between you, or just more responsibility delegated, not just tasks, but actual responsibilities. I think that's a symptom of task delegation. When you delegate a task, it's got to come back to you for review. When you delegate a responsibility, whoever is responsible for that knows what the end state is, knows what the overall goal is, and what good or done or perfect looks like. And so then whatever it takes to get to that responsibility to the end state, you do. But I think something that is also really helpful with this that I don't see enough contractors doing is using a workplace communication tool like Slack. It doesn't have to be Slack. It can be Google Chat. It can be inside of ClickUp or Monday.com, but it can't be email or text. And not even group text works as well. But when you have channels, which is essentially a group on Slack, and people start communicating in the channels rather than direct messages, other people can answer the questions. So instead of asking, where's that tool? Oh, ask Ronnie, he knows where it is. You ask for the tool in the channel and Ronnie responds, not you as the business owner. And so by opening up the conversation, the dialogue to the entire workplace, or to the people that are, you can have specific people from the team in each channel, doesn't have to be everybody. What you do is you allow other people the opportunity to answer rather than you having to be the central point of communication. And I think that goes by people a lot. It's another tool that you've got to manage, that you've got to use, but it can really add a lot of value to how you communicate about your projects, to how you communicate about things that are going on internally. So definitely think something to look at.
Yeah, I agree with that. But you have to enforce, you have to craft the way you use it, which is what you're talking about. And you have to also make sure that people don't just ask you because it's easier, right?
Yeah.
And when I say enforce the way of using it, if you say, hey, will someone take care of the truck that's at the shop, then you've just told no one to do it. If you say your guy was Ronnie, you need to get the truck. And if Ronnie said, hey, you've already got me I'm in Minneapolis today. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Paul, you got to go get the truck. Right. So being specific, another Asana or something similar helps with this, but people will ask you questions as long as you allow them to. And in order to stop that, 2 things have to happen. It's incumbent on you that you've given training. They have processes that they know that they are capable of doing, essentially the process they're asking you about, what the address was. If they come and ask you and you answer them, they're going to do that forever because one, it absolves them. It's kind of, you've got your imprimatur on it. It's got your approval because you told them that. Second, they don't have to go look it up.
Yeah.
Because you'll look it up. The answer to that is, what did the process say? What am I supposed to do with this when I get it back? Well, what's the process say? They have to go read it, come back and tell you what it was, and you will wean them off of asking you. And then you do have to follow up. You do.
That's absolutely right. You can't, just like with kids, you're not supposed to, as you're raising your kids, don't give them the answer all the time. Don't fix everything for them. Let them figure it out themselves to some capacity. Yes, guide, direct, but don't just give them the answer. Same thing with employees. If you want employees to run the system, one, have the system in place, but two, point them to the system. Don't just answer their question or don't just do it for them, which then causes you to be more frustrated, causes you to be overwhelmed with tasks, all that kind of stuff. So
I have a current client who is in a very detailed, very complex business and has more systems. I mean, that is not the problem. And uses Asana, gives very specific assigned tasks. Do this by this time, put it here, and then move on to the next one. And this person was absolutely incapable of doing that. Well, I got sidetracked a little bit, doing a little research on this. Well, you weren't supposed to do that. So yeah, you're showing the hitchhiker thumb. And it was very hard for this person, as it is for most people. It really still is, to let somebody go. But we had it so, not to defend against an unemployment claim or anything like that. Just no. You missed this deadline. I said do this. You did that. You did not finish this. You did not produce the completed report, and so finally, she's asked, she or he, whichever one it was, the owner of this company, this person, was saying, well, wait, kind of not looking for my approval, but kind of, well, what do you think? I said, yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
Everybody has a place in the world. This person's place is not in a highly complex, very structured, rigid, procedural place.
You're doing them a favor.
Yeah, everybody wins.
No one wants to be bad at their job.
Yeah.
That's not like what they wake up, oh, I want to not do a good job today. That's not, I mean, maybe there are people out there that think that way, but the majority of people don't think that way. They're like, okay, I'm going to work today. Yeah. And I don't enjoy my job.
That's another thing from that book I'm reading, Reset. The guy makes the point, it's not his original point. He cites all the studies and everything. What really matters to people more than anything else is that they make progress toward a meaningful goal. And a meaningful goal, autonomy. We've talked many times about employees want autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So that purpose is, why are we doing this? How does it help the world? How does it help me? And they're making progress. We've seen that borne out by the experiments that probably most people have heard of, or if not, you can search it, but where they pay people $10 an hour to dig a ditch, college students, and they dig a ditch and they get their $100 or whatever. And then the next day they come back and they pay them $12 to fill it back in. And the guys, why are we doing this? Just fill it back in. They give them their $120. Then they want to bring them back for the third day to dig it out again, and they don't come back, even though the next day they'll make $130. And I mean, that's the purpose of the experiment. Is it wasn't just the money; they had to have meaning attached to their work, and they're getting frustrated digging holes and filling them in, and digging holes and filling them in. And that's borne out by my father in his manufacturing business had patents on some machinery that were very successful. But when they were developing the machinery, they were manufacturing in one place. They did their R&D and development in another. And they had a really hard time getting the welders and the shop guys to come work in the R&D shop, because they'd cut a part off, make a new one in a different shape or size or style or location, put it back in, go out and test it, cut that one out, go make another one. And the guys just get frustrated because nothing, eventually it did, but they had to go through all these iterations. Guys going, hey, I can't do this anymore. At the end of the day, I got to look over there and see what I got done.
Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later? transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is. OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode. I'm trying to think of how we can, I'm even thinking about the title of this episode. I don't even know maybe we'll call it the miracle question and other things, but trying to think of what would be a good ending for this. So,
well, one of the good endings, we're talking about the psychology, and we really began with the psychology of the employee. And it's not about money. I'm also talking about the psychology of what we originally started with was making yourself aware of your accomplishments.
Right.
And writing them down so that a year from now, you can look back and go, wow, I am not who I was in January of last year. Now, maybe you are, in which case you're going, I got to do something different. But it just, I mean, I hate to say this out loud. I don't mind saying it, but for me, making clients sticky, want to continue to coach, it is very helpful if I go, okay, let's review we've done 25 discrete things that took effort, thought on your part, and we've got them in process now. The positioning document, your contract, your presentation packet where, I'm talking to contractors where you have your workers' comp and your insurance, your presentation video, which shows things that you want your potential customers to know about. Everybody, when we talk about those up front, those are great ideas, but they're not done. When they're done, they're great ideas that are done and are working. So just keep cranking and keep cranking, and it never ends.
Yeah, it never ends. I think I'll end with this. A pretty cool automation that I would love to build. I've got probably at least weekly entries in my journal, sometimes 2 or 3 entries a week in my Notion journal. And I was just thinking I could build an automation that would, be continually reading my journal entries and create a email. Because I think one of the hardest part of that is reminding yourself about the accomplishments. But basically a daily email that I get or a weekly email that I get that just says, hey, I know that you've probably forgotten this, but you accomplished this at some point. Do you remember that?
That is not, you could do that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the, I hate that. Don't remember software, but what's the software that'll do the steps for you that we worked on?
There's several, and I'm actually using a new one now called Gumloop that I'll link to, and maybe we can do an episode on that where I share my screen.
But what was the one? Just because I'm going crazy.
Zapier.
First, Zapier, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Gumloop does what Zapier does.
Yes, it's a little bit different, but it does. What's nice about the Gumloop?
My point is, you could have Plod, and just speak on your way home. If you're like me, you'll take the time and write. I could speak on my way home. It automates and goes over there and just keeps adding to a list. I could write, you don't use chat anymore, but I could write a chat that goes in there and goes, find something relevant for today, meaningful that seems alike. Don't use the same one 2 days in a row, and send me an email. And you'll get an email from chat reviewing your stuff.
Yeah.
And it happened every day. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, we'll look into that. Maybe we'll do an episode with Gumloop. I'd also like to do an episode with you on getting things done. Or maybe it would be better to do it with someone who's, you'd probably be a good use case, but maybe I could do it with a contractor. That would be more beneficial for our audience. So, Martin, I'm glad that we were able to riff raff around here for 40 minutes or so. And
really, has it been that long?
It has been that long, but I think these are valuable things. Look at your accomplishments, find a way to track them, and to remind yourself of them. think about the miracle question and why you're setting the goals. What's the goal of your goals? And then also doing that for your employees, I think is really valuable. Yeah. Look back at what would 2019 version of yourself think about where you are today?
Yeah.
It's a good way to think
really,
about it too.
That's massively important, massively, because you just take everything for granted and then something bad happens. I'm saying it all again, but it is so important to do that.
Yeah. Man, good things. We'll hopefully get warmer weather soon as well.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be up to 12 by noon.
Fahrenheit for all you international
yeah.
listeners.
Yeah. Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So what's 12 in Celsius? Let's see. It's minus 32. So minus 30. It's
minus 10.
Yeah.
10 or so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's minus 10.
It's
yeah.
nuts.
Minus 32 and then divide that by 2 and it gets you pretty close.
Yeah, it does.
Or double it. If you're going the other way, double it and add 32. So.
Yeah. All right. See you,
Martin. Okay, man. Thank you.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.